The Fused of Roshar are a formidable force of warriors under the control of Odium. They've been around for millennia, and with the final desolation they have now become a relentless army that gets reborn with each passing of the Everstorm. But what exactly are the Fused? What makes them different from the regular singers we've come to know? Sanderson is well known for his magic systems and deep characters, but not a lot of recognition goes towards his skill in creating unique and well-developed fantasy races. So today, I hope to shed some light on one of his most well-known races in the Cosmere. In today's Cosmere Q&A video, we're looking into the Fused thanks to a comment left by Shrek Snow. Remember that you can also request video topics by leaving a comment below. If it's something with enough substance, you may very well see a Cosmere Q&A video on it shortly after. But let's get back to the topic at hand and take a deeper look into the Fused. We'll be discussing what they are, how they're formed, what powers they have, and a whole lot more. So let's dive right in. Who are the Fused? The Fused are the ancient spirits of singers from all the way back during the first desolation. They were made into cognitive shadows by Odium, eternal life in exchange for their loyalty to the vindictive god. Back during past desolations, they would be born into the bodies of living singers and fight for Odium. If they died, they would be sent back to Braze, a hellish world of pain and torture, until the next desolation came. This was the only way that the humans would be able to win the war. They would have to defeat all the Fused and their armies, and then the heralds would go back to Braze to hold them back as long as possible. Unfortunately, Odium found a way around this with the Everstorm. Now when the Fused die, they aren't exiled to Braze to await the next desolation. Instead, they are reborn every time the Everstorm makes its way across Roshar. And you might be thinking that this sounds like a much better arrangement for the Fused, but unfortunately not exactly. Not only does it come too late for many, but it also has its own price. Most Fused have been driven mad by their time on Braze and their many years of life. Those that haven't seem to want nothing more than for the fighting to end. And while the Fused are cognitive shadows inhabiting the bodies of others, they still feel pain like everyone else. So now they've been forced to essentially throw themselves at the human armies, having to experience the pain of death over and over, whilst trying not to go more insane than they already are. Overall, the story of the Fused seems very much like a tragedy. But now that we've covered who they are and where they came from, let's look at other aspects of their society. Fused society. The Fused follow a fairly complex social order. In their eyes, nothing stands above Odium, and he is the highest authority in their society. Conversely, they see humans as the lowest life forms and only hold hatred and contempt for them. Above humans, they place ordinary singers. These are singers without any abilities or powers, and they are generally the lowest in Fused society, though they are still seen as being above humans. From these ordinary singers, the Fused will choose a select few to be given forms of power. Once these forms have been granted to the singer, they gain the title of regal, and are seen as a step above ordinary singers. Above the regals are the Fused themselves. While this seems fairly clean-cut, there will be deviations and differences within the social hierarchy depending on factors such as one's past, one's achievements, and even how insane a given Fused has become over the eons. The highest authority in the Fused society, besides Odium himself, is a council of 9 ancient Fused. This council, known simply as the 9, are entombed in stone pillars through soul casting. They remain there and provide guidance and counsel to high-ranking Fused when needed. These high-ranking Fused would bring a regal known as their voice to speak for them. Venli from the Stormlight Archive, for example, is a voice of Lady Leshwi. But now that we understand who the Fused are and how their society is structured, let's move on to something a bit more interesting, their abilities. The brands of Fused. There are 9 different brands of Fused as far as we are aware, though we only have reference to 7 of them. Each brand has access to one of the surges, though none have access to adhesion. Currently, the brands with access to the surges of tension and division are not yet known. The first brand of Fused are the Shanae-Im, or the Heavenly Ones. These Fused have access to the surge of gravitation and subsequently have the ability to fly like windrunners or skybreakers. Interestingly enough, they don't need void light to control their own gravity, but they do have to use void light to heal themselves or to lash other objects or people. They're generally recognized by their long robes that hang several feet below them, and the long lance-like spears they use in fights against surge binders. They seem to be very honorable in their fights, as they will often prefer one-on-one duels instead of large skirmishes. The Shanae-Im are the most well-known brand of Fused to us, and the most notable of their kind is Lady Leshwi. The next brand of Fused we know of are the Nex-Im, or the Husked Ones. These Fused have access to the surge of transportation. This allows them to travel rapidly as a ribbon of light, leaving behind a husk of their old carapace that will eventually crumble to dust. A new body will be formed where they travel to, though they can only do this 4 times until they need to replenish their stores of void light. The only way to kill them is to do so before they leave their body or while they are in their 4th and final body. Very few Fused of this brand exist, and the only known one to us is Lezian the Pursuer. Next we have the Makai-Im, or the Deepest Ones. These Fused have access to the surge of cohesion. This allows them to sink into stone and earth as if it were air, and allows them to travel completely unseen. We do not have any notable Fused of this brand, and most of the following brands in this list also don't have a lot of information on them. The Shetel-Im, or Flowing Ones, are a brand of Fused with access to the surge of abrasion. Like edge dancers, this allows them to control friction between bodies, and thus lets them glide around battlefields at blurring speeds. The Mavset-Im, or Masked Ones, are a brand of Fused with access to the surge of illumination. This allows them to create illusions like those that Lightbringer Radiants are able to create. The Fanan-Im, or Altered Ones, are a brand of Fused with access to the surge of transformation. Similar to soulcasting, it allows them to transform matter, but they seem to have a finer grasp of it than Radiants. Raboniel is a notable Fused of this brand, and she was able to breathe a cloud of noxious gas and turn a sword to dust, which makes it seem like they can control the surge much more naturally than Radiants. The final brand we know of is one we do not even have the Fused name for. We know them simply as the Magnified Ones, and they have access to the surge of progression. This allows them to grow their carapace into any shape they need, often creating swords or saws out of their own hands. This is basically all we know of the Fused without getting into minute detail. There's not a lot we know just yet, but since we're not even halfway through the Stormlight archive, I'm certain we'll learn a lot more. I'm usually not a fan of fantasy races since they often tend to be bland or watered down. Brandon did an amazing job with the Fused, however, as they feel like a very unique and interesting race with their own intricacies and details. And if I've done this video right, then hopefully you'll also have a better understanding and appreciation for the Fused than before. Anyway, that's been about it from me for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. My name has been Raven, and I will see you all next time. Take care, everybody.